YouTube channel English for Long Life. As you remember, we came up with a very important series of lessons throughout our previous video, which was under the major component, grammar. So under that, we thought of introducing you the first point, which is the basic part of speech. And from that also, we started the first lesson, which was the basic category under the basic part of speech, which is nouns. And today in our lesson, we will be discussing the second important component, which is the verbs. If you have missed our previous lesson, don't worry. We've dropped down the link in the description box. You can visit there, click on the link and watch it. So, there are many other ways that you could get connected with English for Long Life. That is through Facebook and Instagram. So why should we waste time? Let's go and see what's inside today. Welcome to our classroom. Today in our lesson, we will be discussing about the second important component under the major category of parts of speech, which is the verbs. In our discussion today, we will be explaining you how to define a verb, what are the different categories under verbs, how could you exactly classify which verb goes under which category, and in our lesson today, we will be providing you a lot of examples for different kinds of verbs. So, let's get started. The four main topics we will be discussing under our major topic, verbs, would be as follows. The first important category would be state verbs, or you might even have heard them as static verbs. The next one is action verbs, which is also called the dynamic verbs. Number 2, main verbs or the helping verbs, which you might call them as auxiliary verbs. Under that, you might even learn modal verbs. The third important category is regular and irregular verbs. And the final content in our discussion today would be transitive and intransitive verbs. Well, if someone asks you how to define a verb, what is the answer that you are ready to give? It might be confusing because most of you all would find the simplest definition. Well, I will tell you something like this. A verb is any verb that is used to show a state or an action. Now, what do you mean by a state or an action? Let us see what it means in detail. Well, a state or a stative verb means any verb that is used to express a situation, whereas an action or a dynamic verb means they are used to express physical activity. Now, what is the major difference between this? There's no major difference between the state or the action verb. Both give the same meaning. The only thing is regarding its function. Now, if you look at the examples here, you can see we have examples like be, have, think, and like. They are the things which express a situation. You cannot show them by action, but they are situations. Whereas an action or a dynamic verb means you can physically create an action and show those verbs. That's why you call it an action verb. Well, look at the examples. Run, sing, climb, stand and dance. Now let us clarify between the two types of examples. Well, to show something that you have, you cannot show the action, right? If you're thinking, you cannot show the action of thinking. If you like towards something, you cannot show it. Therefore, it belongs to the category of a situation. That is why it is classified as a stative verb. Now let us see once again at the examples of action verbs. Well, you can run and show someone. You can sing and show. You can climb, you can stand, you can dance. All these actions could be physically performed in front of anyone. That is why we call them the action verbs or the dynamic verbs. Let us look into sentences with an important rule. I have a car. You have a car, but you cannot show the action of having a car, right? So the next point is he climbs the tree. You can climb up a tree and you can show the action that you climbing the tree. The next important rule is state verbs cannot be used in the ing form. That means you cannot use them in because they describe or they express a situation. Whereas you are allowed to use the ing form for action or dynamic verbs because you perform them and they can be continued. Therefore, they can be used in the continuous form or the ing form, just like the examples I've shown here. He climbs the tree. By using the ing form, you can express it as he is climbing the tree because you can show the action at the moment. But here, you cannot say, we can say I have a car, but you cannot say I'm having a car. That's wrong because we know that stative verbs are not used in the ing form. Moving on to the next category, our second important topic is main verb or helping verb. Now, how do you identify a verb, whether it's a main verb or a helping verb? Follow this. Now, a verb inside a sentence could take any place, such as the main verb or the helping verb. The helping verbs could be like be, do, have. So, the helping verb usually supports the main verb in any sentence. Let us look at an example. Peter is driving a car. Now, here Peter is the subject. We have is the helping verb. We have another verb driving. And we have the object. So here is considered to be the helping verb and we have driving, which is the main verb. So now we can see that we have used the helping word to support the main verb to give a complete meaning. So what are the other functions of a helping verb? Now let's see like this. Helping verb helps to identify the tense. The important function which is done by a helping verb is it helps to identify what tense it belongs to. Now if I say Peter is driving a car, we know that Peter is driving a car at the moment, so it belongs to the present continuous. But if I put here was, which is the past tense of is, now that is also another helping verb. We know now that this is past continuous because Peter was driving a car. That means he was driving a car in the past. So remember, helping words help us to identify the tense at first. The second important point which is functioned by a helping verb is it helps to convert a normal sentence or a positive sentence into the negative. Just like this, Peter is driving a car. Peter isn't driving a car, or Peter was driving a car, and the negative form of it is Peter wasn't driving a car. The next important function of a helping verb is it helps to convert a normal sentence into a question, just as follows. Is Peter driving a car? Now we have used or we have started this question with a helping verb is. If you change the tense into past, you can say, was Peter driving a car? Well, now I hope you have a clear idea regarding what a main verb and what a helping verb is, and the function of a main verb and also the function of a helping verb. But there is one more important thing that I should remind you. In some situations, helping verbs can be used as main verbs. Now look at this sentence, I have a car. You don't have two verbs there, but you have one verb, which is a helping verb. So at this moment, where you have only one verb and that is a helping verb, remember, the helping verb normally or usually becomes a main verb in these kind of sentences. Now let us talk about modals, which is also another category or a type of helping verb. Verbs that are used to express mood. What is a mood? Mood is always mentioned as the attitude of the speaker. That means at the time of expressing some idea, the mood or the attitude within the speaker comes out using these modal verbs. Let's see what they are. Can, could, may, might, will, would, shall, should and must. So I have taken three important examples like might, can and mustn't. So might, the modal verb might is used to express possibility. Like if there is some possibility of happening, you can use this word might. The next one is can, which shows the ability. And the final one is mustn't, which says no permission. So look at the example. The Sri Lankan team might win the match. No, the SL team might win the match. So here we have a possibility of winning the match, but we're not yet sure of the action. That is why we have used this modal verb might. The next one is can, which is surely used to talk about the ability of a particular thing or a person. My sister can cook food, so we're quite sure that this person possesses with the ability. Therefore, we have used the modal verb can. The next one is mustn't, which means there's no permission. Like if you see the word mustn't anywhere, remember it gives you the message saying that there's no permission for any kind of actions like this. You mustn't smoke here, which simply means you are prohibited doing these kind of things. So if you find these words like mustn't, wouldn't, shouldn't, remember they give you the negative meaning, which you are not to do those kind of things. So now let us see what is our next important category. Well, now let us see how to identify whether a particular verb is regular or irregular. Now, this issue comes when we turn or change the form of the verb while converting the tenses. So, for example, I've given here a table which includes with the 5 types of verbs like the infinitive form, the present tense form, the past tense form, the past participle, and the ing form. So, I've shown majorly the regular verb and an irregular verb, and I'll show you the difference of identifying whether it's a regular or an irregular verb. Now, in the first, the base form or the infinitive form, we have taken here the verb cook. So, to cook is the infinitive form. The present tense form comes cook or cooks. That means like I cook, they cook, we cook, and you cook. But he, she, it cooks. And the past tense of this verb cook becomes cooked. And the past participle is also cooked. And the ing form is cooking. Now let us see the difference again. Now in this, the second category, the verb go shows us it's like an irregular verb. To go, we have the present tense verb like I, you, we, and they go. He, she, it goes. And the past tense of it is went. And the past participle of it is gone. And the ing form is going. Now how could we identify whether a particular verb is an irregular verb or a regular verb? Now the simplest way is if you have the same form for the past tense and the past participle tense, then remember it comes under the category of regular, just like this, because we have ed in both the past tense category and the past participle category of the verb cook. We take it or categorize it under the verb regular. But now if we look at this verb go, when it is turned into the past tense, it is went, and the past participle of it is gone. So there, remember, it is irregular. So regular becomes like past tense and the past participle. Both the verbs end up with ed and they are the same. And the irregular verbs are changed in the past tense and the past participle. So it comes under the category of irregular verbs. Now, one more important thing, you might go and read books, find through the internet and many places how to find the difference between irregular and irregular. There's no hard and fast rule or that there are conditions for regular verbs and irregular verbs. The only thing is like you have to have a lot of practice by reading, gathering vocabulary, or reading a lot of stuff could help you. Or with your experience only you could identify whether a particular verb could categorize under regular and irregular. So remember, there's no specific or particular rule that a verb could be identified under regular under these categories, or it could be classified as irregular under these categories. But remember, one special hint is there. If you have the past tense verb and the past participle in the ed form, and if it is the same, remember it's regular. And if these two forms are changing, remember it's irregular. Well, the final and the important category in our discussion today would be transitive and intransitive verbs. So here remember, transitive verbs always take an object. What do you mean by a transitive verb always takes an object? Now just let's understand it with an example. Peter kicked the ball. So remember, there are some verbs in English language which are already categorized under transitive and intransitive. That means if a word or a sentence is ended with a transitive verb without an object, the meaning is incomplete. That means you couldn't get a complete meaning. For example, if I say Peter kicked, what did Peter kick? Do you know what it is? No. So that's why we say transitive verbs, they need an object. So for example, Peter kicked the ball. That means kicked is the transitive verb and the object that goes with kicked is the ball. Then we'll look at another example like this. I made a cake. If I stop saying I made, is the sentence complete? Do you find a meaning there? No, it is not. That is why we say again, transitive verbs, they need an object. For example, like I made a cake. Made is a transitive verb and the object is a cake. There are some common verbs in English language which categorize under the transitive, like hit, give, carry, climb, make and take. Amidst all these, there are a lot of transitive verbs. So we've just brought you the main or the simple or the commonly used transitive verbs. Now let us see what intransitive verbs are. Intransitive verbs are the verbs that does not need an object to complete the meaning. For example, the old man laughed loudly. Now here we have the verb laughed. But look whether there is an object there next to the verb to complete the meaning. No, it isn't. The old man laughed loudly. Loudly is an adverb which expresses or which defines the verb laughed. Look at another example like this. The boy ran faster. The boy ran faster. That means here also the word faster is used to define the verb run. Therefore, it is an adverb. It's not an object. So there are some commonly used intransitive verbs like live, die, laugh, cry, run. So now I hope you are clearly what transitive and intransitive verbs are. Transitive verbs, they need an object to complete the meaning, whereas intransitive verbs are not in line with, they do not need an object directly to give out the full meaning. One more simple hint, if you want to identify whether this particular verb, whether it's intransitive or transitive, go for this. If you ask a question with what or who and if you get the answer, remember that verb is a transitive verb. And if you ask a question using who or what and if you don't get an answer, that means it is not an transitive but it is an intransitive verb like this. What did Peter kick? What did Peter kick? Peter kicked the ball. The answer should be the object. So that means the sentence is complete and the verb is transitive. What did you make? I made a cake. So when you ask this question what, if you're getting your answer as the object should come as the answer. That means these kind of verbs are transitive. Now if I say, who laughed? Who laughed? It's the old man. It's the subject. It's not the object, right? So can I ask what made the man laugh? There's no object to give the answer. So that is why we say laugh comes under intransitive. The boy ran faster. Who ran faster? The boy ran faster. But again, the boy is the subject, not the object. But if I ask, what made the boy run faster? Is there an answer? No. That is because these verbs are categorized under intransitive. Now I hope that you are quite familiar with all the types of our verbs that we described today. The simple thing which we did was the stative and the action verbs. And next we did talk about the main verbs and the helping verbs. Under that we categorized how a main verb could be a helping verb and how a helping verb helps or supports the main verb. And also we checked out how a helping verb could turn out to be a main verb. And under that, we discussed majorly about the modal verb category, which is also another helping verb. And also we discussed or we identified how to categorize between regular and irregular. And there was one hint that there is no hard and fast rule to find whether this is a regular or an irregular verb, but with your usage, with your experience, with your usage of vocabulary, you could get the experience to identify whether a particular verb is regular or irregular. And in our final categorization, we came up with this important classification of transitive and intransitive. Now you know that transitive verbs, they do go with objects, whereas intransitive verbs, they do not have an object to complete the meaning. So, I hope you all enjoyed the lesson today. Well, let's meet in our next session. Goodbye.